I want to welcome today a super special guest, Speaker Nancy Pelosi, of course, the 52nd Speaker of the House, the most powerful woman to ever hold office in this country. Hopefully that's going to change in about 6 weeks. You've been a hero of mine. I've watched you from a distance navigate incredible waters. You've overseen everything from the Affordable Care Act to getting us through the 2008 financial crisis to, of course, January 6th. You put that all through in the book. Before we get into the book, and we're going to sell a lot of books today, give me your state of the race on what you think. We're about 6 weeks away. How are you feeling about things?
Today, I think we would win, and we have to whip the lead. I'm from Maryland. I'm always using sports analogies. Whip the lead as we go into the stretch here. And I'm just this week I was in 4 states, not counting California or Washington, D.C., 4 other places. Of course, on the House races as well, but for the presidential. And it's all close. I'm going to use another sports analogy, the Olympics. Gold, silver, bronze, honor to be an Olympian within 1 second.
Yes.
So we have to think that way. We just have to think they're all close, and we have to do everything in our power to own the ground. Well, I can go into that if you wish, how I think we're going to win.
You talk so much in the book about the Trump years and you're dealing with, and I'll read a few quotes from it, but are you astounded as I am that we are at a point that after people have witnessed this man, people have witnessed the January 6th, people have witnessed what we see every day on TV, and 70 million Americans are still like, yep, that's my guy. It's so concerning what it says about us. Forget him. We know who he is, but what does it say about us?
Well, what it says is there are certain block of people that we'll never get. They're anti-women, anti-LGBTQ, anti-people of color, anti-immigration, all of those things. They're solidly there. We'll never get them. And then they're the very wealthy who say, don't pay attention to anything that he is. He's terrible. We know that he's adult. He's awful. Just pay attention to your tax return. And that's for the very rich. Now, there aren't that many, but they're a lot of money that goes into the campaign. In between, I have some sympathy for those who are concerned, who are about globalization, innovation, and what that means to their future economically. And we have done a lot in that regard under Joe Biden. It hasn't been explained fully to them yet, obviously. But I think some of those people have a legitimate concern about what their future is. I'm a truck driver. Now they're going to have driverless trucks. I do this, that. And we have to be respectful of their concerns. But the ones that get me are the very rich. Their patriotism is only about their P&L statement. And they're rich.
And they know better. And Madam Speaker, they know better. Those are the people. They're a lot of my friends. Yeah, they're a lot of my friends. And I'm so disgusted. And because, as you said, if somebody thinks he's going to put more food on his table or save his job, I got it. That's who you should be voting for. But it's the ones that know better. You and I both know a lot of these people.
And I know we do. And it's hard to think of them as shared values when their whole pages, the Constitution, provide for the common defense, promote the general welfare, the blessings of liberty for ourselves and our person, what it means for their children, the air they breathe, the water they drink, to save the planet, gun violence prevention in the schools and in the communities and the neighborhoods, issues that relate to a woman's right to choose and personal freedom, LGBTQ, and good bipartisan immigration policy, which he completely opposed. In the Senate, the list goes on. And I just, it's really sad for me.
I wish every American could watch Ronald Reagan's speech as he was leaving office about immigration.
This is the last speech I will make as President of the United States, and I'm going to communicate a message to the country I love. It talks about the Statue of Liberty being the beacon of hope to the world, and we are preeminent in the world because our door is open. We will fail to be preeminent if we shut that door. And you know it very well. I want everybody, thank you for bringing it up. When I quote that to my colleagues, the Republicans, they don't applaud. I said, you're not applauding Ronald Reagan? And George Herbert Walker Bush continued that
Absolutely. Speaking of
attitude.
colleagues, I had Adam Kinzinger on a couple of weeks ago, and I asked him this question. I always wonder, off the record, how many people come up to you and say, well, Madam Speaker, we know you're right, but these are adults. These are people with children and grandchildren and husbands and wives. And don't they know better? That's what I'm always wondering. Like, how do they kind of look at themselves in the mirror when they're just standing by? And we know the stories of Ted Cruz, and we know the story of so many others that he is so humiliated, and they just take it. And I just, as a human, I don't get it.
Not that many.
Yeah, really.
Answer to your question. You say, how many of them come up to me and say that? Not that many. It is. Let me give you a statistic, just so you get a feel for what we live with here. When our democracy, for the first time, our whole system of freedom was curtailed. First time, everything since the Constitution, which had terrible things in it, slavery and the rest, but our founders had the wisdom to make it amendable. Abolish slavery, blacks having the right to vote, women having the right to vote, Roe v. Wade, all kinds of things expanding freedom in our country until the Dobbs decision. Pulled it right back. And at the same time said, since we don't respect privacy, the right of privacy in the Constitution, and we ignore precedents of the court, everything is at stake. Okay, so I put on the floor after Dobbs. We put on the floor. We still had the majority then. This was 2 years ago. Enshrining Dobbs in the Constitution. Well, not one Republican voted for it. You expect that. That's what they believe. Okay. Mm-hmm. Then I said to the members, I'm going to put on the floor Kathy Manning's bill, which is women have a right to contraception. The members were saying to me, you're going to make them well. They're going to look sane. They're going to vote for women having the right to contraception. This is my job. This is what I do. Okay, trust me. We put the thing on the floor. 195 Republicans voted no. 8 Republicans voted yes. 8.
Incredible.
That's what we're serving with. 8 people think women have a right to contraception.
8 people.
8 women. 8 people. 3 of them women.
We're also serving with people, and you talk so much in the book about your day on January 6th, when we get into that, who somehow put that as an asterisk, like just it didn't happen, or it wasn't so bad, or no biggie. And don't people understand that if Trump loses, we are headed to that and then some again? That's not talked about enough.
Well, what was so awful was the occasion, the President of the United States inciting an insurrection, a violent insurrection, all that, people coming, defecating on the floor, insulting the people who run the Congress, going after, the maintenance people, which we owe so much to, the security, they over 100 of them injured seriously, some died from that. All of that, they themselves in danger, having to push furniture against walls and doors and all that. And after all was said and done, and I insisted, and Chuck Schumer did, as well as Mitch McConnell, we insisted that we go back to the floor, because the security was saying, maybe you do it in the undisclosed locations. No, we're going back to the floor to show the American people and the world that our democracy prevailed when we voted for it. Overwhelmingly, the Republican, led by their leadership, voted against the peaceful transfer of power. That was, how could you do that? You saw the violence with your own eyes. You were a victim of it. You spoke against it.
Going back to my opening question, how are 70 or 80 million people okay with this? When you talk to people about it, their eyes glaze up, and yeah, that was a little crazy, but how that is not absolutely disqualifying is just as an American, forget Republican, forget Democrat, just as an American, how is that not disqualifying?
Well, one thing is the Republicans knew it was horrible, so they have revisionist history on it. It was just like the other day I was on a panel with Senator Scott from South Carolina. Oh, I was there that day. It was okay, and the president sent in the National Guard. We begged him on our hands and knees. in a bipartisan way to send the National Guard, and he wouldn't do it for hours and hours. But let's look forward. That is all the reason why Hakeem Jeffries must have that gavel on January 6th.
Mm-hmm.
We need to have a Democratic majority in the House for many reasons that address the needs of the American people. But for our democracy, that day, as I had it last time, not that it was about me, but about the majority of the Democrats having the votes, boom, to accept the peaceful transfer of power, when the Republicans overwhelmingly were voting against it, led by their leadership to do so. So then the federal government has declared that day a special national security event. That's what they do for, like, I don't know, the Super Bowl or some, maybe the inauguration. Now they're making that. So we'll have more security. Nobody could have expected at a president. Now, talking about him, what these people don't understand, bless their hearts, and we haven't explained it clearly enough. Let's take responsibility for it. This is a totally incompetent, in addition to all of the obvious disgusting things that he is. He's incompetent.
You talk about in the book about sanity should be like kind of the first place that we taught. That should be the kind of the low hanging fruit. And I was reading an article in the Atlantic. You were talking about that also. That should be a little bit of a basically a bottom line. No.
Well, they were asking me values and judgment and this and that. Would those be the standards for a president? I said, no. I would add one more thing: sanity. Because he's not on the level. You understand that. He's good at being a snake oil salesman. He's good in capturing what is out there and normalizing it and enlarging it. That group that are anti everything that is not who they insecurely are.
So much of the book is your dealings with Trump. What would you say was the one incident, it could be a minor incident, where you said that is actually kind of the scariest tell about who he is as a human being?
Oh, I think the incitement of the insurrection.
Yeah.
I mean, there's nothing to compare with that. An assault on the Capitol, the beacon of liberty to the world, an assault on the Congress of the United States to do its duty to accept the results of the election, an assault on the Constitution of the United States, which calls for that day to be the day where that happens, and to do so violently. They were going to put a bullet in my crude language head. They were going to hang the Vice President of the United States. And this guy the other day from South Carolina is saying, I was there that day.
Not so bad.
It was nothing. And it was something. But again, you would have thought, well, because they knew it was so bad, they had to revise history on it. So I think that day had to be the worst, with stiff competition, mind you, for being horrible, just not being on the level with the American people.
I want to shift gears a little bit. A woman in power is always a tricky thing. You have navigated power so well in being able to wield it and do it kind of an iron fist and a velvet glove. Hillary ran very much on the glass ceiling, and I think strategically correctly, Kamala is not. She's just running, here's why I'm the best president. And it's not because I'm a woman of color. It's not because I'm a woman. It's not because I'm a woman. It's because this is what I do. And I'm just curious your take on that.
I think you're totally right.
Yeah.
I completely agree with you. Taking it back to me for a second, when I ran for speaker, when I ran for leadership, I said, don't vote for me because I'm a woman, but don't vote against me because I'm a woman. Listen to what I have to say about how I think we can win the House. I mean, that's why I became speaker, because we won the House. But what is the path to our winning the House? I think that Kamala is doing it exactly right, as you suggested, as you said. But I also think that it doesn't mean just because you don't run as a woman that we cannot appeal to women.
Absolutely.
And the difference between the Democrats and Republicans in terms of women, not just a woman's right to choose, which would be enough, but it's about child care and child tax credit and family and medical leave and all these things. Women are great entrepreneurs, small businesswomen. What we're doing to enable women to be in the workplace, not just about jobs, but about equity, about ownership. So there's a lot of it to be excited about. And it was all part of the Biden agenda. We couldn't get it all through. The 60 vote thing prevented certain things from happening. But hopefully when the House, the Senate, the White House get rid of that filibuster so we can finish some of it. Just imagine without the filibuster, we can have comprehensive immigration reform without the 60 vote, background checks on gun violence. We can have the Equality Act for LGBTQ non-discrimination. We can, did I say immigration reform? I did already. There's so many things, raise the minimum wage, so many things that we could get accomplished if we didn't have that rule in the Senate.
You were talking about some of the issues and some of the things that Kamala wants to do, and Joe and Mika the last couple of days have been on something that I feel very strongly about. This false narrative that she's doesn't talk about the issues. We don't know anything about her, and the irony is there are no issues with Trump other than the world's going to fall apart. You better elect me, and I can fix everything.
Let me just say, I know Kamala a long time. We're from the same area. I know her personally. She's a person of great faith. And that is she demonstrates that in her care for the community in so many ways. Her civic involvement is about loving the community and respecting everyone. I know her officially, strong, a woman of strength. She knows the issues, she knows the policy, she knows the strategy to get it done, and she's eloquent in presenting it. And I know her politically. Very politically astute. She wouldn't be where she is right now if she were not political. So she is equipped, loving the people, knowing the policy, politically astute to lead us to victory. Some of the people, and this, because my daughter Alexandra is in your line of work, she's a journalist too. I keep saying when people say she doesn't do interviews, well, that's in your interest.
Yeah.
In her interest, she is making her own presentation. I never tell presidential candidates what I think they should do. Never. But I tell them what we hear. And what we hear is that people want to hear what she has to say about their kitchen table issues, how we lower the cost, and how we expand the opportunity, and we keep people very safe. And I think that she's doing that.
Speaking of safe, President Biden is speaking at the UN today, and against the backdrop of obviously the war in Gaza and the war in the Ukraine. I would just love your thoughts on Democrats' view on that. Obviously, I was offended when Donald Trump continually says anti-Semitic things about that you're not a good Jew if you don't vote Republican, or that anti-Semitic tropes that they're going to be to blame. And I just was particularly offended by that, and I'm particularly offended on his using of Jewish people for that reason.
Yeah, especially now. I have this button. I would have had it on. It names the hostages, and it also, I was with Hirsch's family at the convention, and here his name is on this button. And then we found out just days later that we had lost him. In terms of October 7th, it was a terrible, terrible thing. We have concerns about civilian collateral damage in what has happened since then. But I don't understand why some people in the Jewish community accept that from him. Yeah. I mean, look at Charlottesville. Charlottesville was so scary. People coming down the mountain with torches. Jews will not replace us. Jews will not replace us. And then the next day he says there were good people on both sides. Yeah. How could that be? But what he said the other day, if I lose, it's because of Jew. What? I mean, you would think there would be somebody make a judgment that this is not a decent human being, had they no decency, as the expression goes, to judge who should be the president of the United States.
Well, he does the same thing with all creating an other. It doesn't matter. He'll do it with Muslims. He'll do it with Jews. He'll do it whatever other is in his best interest that serves him, and that's his only best interest.
And he knows, and even with this cats and dogs, I always say about him, he goes against, maybe because he knows, I know. I mean, Kamala says, I've known people like him. I've prosecuted guys like him. I know him. And this is an incompetent, bigoted person. I mean, he's horrible. But having said that, let's just talk about his incompetence to have the job, his being on the level to have the job. But he always projects Nancy's crazy Nancy because he knows he's crazy. Crooked Hillary because he knows he's crooked. So I'm beginning to worry about him now that he's calling people cat and dog eaters, that he might be one projecting that on himself as well. They may not value what dogs and cats mean to people. But again, you know what? We just have to win. We don't agonize about him. We just win, baby. And we have to win.
And you know what? I want to point out that I think, he always was this crazy, tyrannical guy. He's kind of pathetic now. He's like the old man eating applesauce. He doesn't, I've known him for years. I've known him for 25 years. And he's not the same guy. He's as evil as he is. But there's a weakness to him. There's a patheticness to him at this point.
Yeah, I think that is a good word. He's pathetic in many, many respects. But we cannot. Look, I stayed in Congress with a goal that we would win the House and we would defeat Trump. And I've had to do things that are unhappy for me to that end. We make a decision to win, and then you have to do every other decision in favor of winning. This would be we withstood one term of him. We cannot withstand 2 terms. And we withstood one because we won the Congress in the second part of his term. So we could contain some of his negative attitudes, his lack of patriotism for our country. If only they would just see what he says about veterans. How could it be?
Discuss what this vile what he's and standing at Arlington and using it as a prop in a background. And
I know. And I was in Normandy when he was president, and the things he said there, but he made it all political and the rest. But you know what? Forget about him. Let's go forward. Let's talk about Kamala and what she brings to it and what our Democratic agenda brings to it. And what that is also listening to the people about what their major concerns are. And of course, the cost of living is a big concern. Kamala will be making a speech tomorrow about the economy. And what I do know is when we're talking about the Hispanic community, you mentioned the Muslim community, when you're talking about women, any category you can name, everybody is wants to be an entrepreneur, wants to. Women are the biggest creators of small business now, creators of small business, creators of wealth, having equity, as I mentioned earlier, having the freedom of choice and childcare that is affordable and enables women to do that, family and medical leave as well. So we have to have policies that match that. But when the Muslims come to see me, or when the Hispanic, whatever, they talk about immigration, but they talk about entrepreneurship, job creation, business creation, not, as I say, not just jobs, but equity. And all the bills that we passed support that, but people have to know. Lincoln said, public sentiment is everything. With it, we can do almost anything. Without it, practically nothing. But for public sentiment to prevail, people have to know. And I was impatient about people not knowing as we go into this campaign. Notice that I've now quoted 2 Republican presidents.
I love it. By the way, Kamala's numbers on the economy have grown tremendously in terms of the polls. There was always a huge spread of what Trump could do for the economy. And I think that's a function of that the economy is roaring. Jobs are at an all-time high. The stock market's at an all-time high. Inflation has cooled dramatically. Wages are up. Our GDP is up. I mean, no matter how you grade the economy, yes, inflation has been a problem, but that's changed dramatically. The economy, this is the best economy we've ever lived through.
It's amazing. And the inflation, we did better than it was a global phenomenon or problem, but we did better than any other country in reducing it. But people, I don't know, it all comes down to the grocery store. When people go to the grocery store,
and the gas station,
everything is expensive. And women do most of the purchasing and paying of the bills and the rest in most families. So we have to show, I mean, there is price gouging and all that, but people don't want to see finger pointing. They just want to know is it going to come down, and how are we going to get there? And supply and demand is a part of that. When COVID and holding up of product and all the rest of that took us to this place, now we have to get out of it. But you mentioned it, so their wages have gone up. Now look, Joe Biden, 15 million jobs created. What's his name? I hate using his name.
Whatever that guy's name, the guy with the hair, right?
What's his name? The worst job creation record since Herbert Hoover. And by the way, Herbert Hoover tried to bring down the cost of living. He was the only president in 100 years who brought down the cost of living, and you see what came from that. So we have to be careful about how we deal with it. We have to be careful about how we message it, but how people are not recognizing the lowest unemployment. Every statistic you mentioned.
Every stat.
Again.
So before I let you go, we're down to the final sprint. What is Kamala's message towards if you could script it, not that you're scripting it, she's scripting it, but what would be the message, the closing message, the closing sell?
Well, I think she's begun that with a new way forward. People have to know that, people said, should she break with Biden or should she? No, spring from it. There's a lot to be proud of, and as part of it is our accomplishments too. It's our legacy of the Democrats in the Congress, Chuck in the Senate, and the Democrats in the House. But spring from it, take it to new heights, a new way forward, but strengthened by what we have done, the platform that was created by Joe Biden, Kamala Harris, Democrats in the Congress. Don't consider it a ceiling, consider it a floor, and spring from it. So her message of a new way forward, the specific policy things that relate to gun safety, protecting the planet, family medical leave, child care, all of that fit neatly into her kitchen table message. These are issues that, and you know what? They're all related to that great big word, democracy.
Yes, and safety and protection.
It's a democratic issue.
Yeah.
It's a safety issue. This is all about democracy. So she will make her presentation tomorrow on economy, is my understanding, but throughout, new way forward. Now, I would add for the children, because that's what my whole thing is. That's why I went from housewife to House member to House Speaker, for the children. All of it is about the future. Elections are about the future, and how she presents this for families to do what they need to do, however you define your family, whatever that may be to you.
Yeah.
But again, for the future.
Madam Speaker, I want to thank you for all the work you've done over the years. You are really a national treasure, and I want to thank your grandson and my daughter for putting this together. And we're going to fight the good fight, and the good guys are going to win. I really believe that.
Yeah, we're going to own the ground by getting out the vote. We're just going to own the ground. We're going to have a message that is progressive and bold, but non-menacing. That is uniting. We have a responsibility to try to unite our country. And we're going to have the money, the third M. And I said my 3 no's. No wasted time, no underutilized resources, and no regrets the day after the election. That if only we had all walked one more precinct, and especially a swing state, that this could be different. We must win. We will win. We made a decision to win. Onward to victory. Go for the gold.
I love it. Go for the gold. Madam Speaker, thank you so much. I know how busy you are.
Donny.
Everybody, thanks for watching. If you like it, hit that subscribe button. And we love having you here watching On Brand. And just don't miss any future episodes. So don't forget to hit that subscribe button. We'll see you next time.